Well, again, folks, this is the first step in the salve making process. I have one jar here ready to go. As you can see, it's lightly packed. And I have a mixture of jewelweed and plantain in it. I'd say it's 2 to 1 part jewelweed. You can fill it halfway to 3/4 the way. I have ample here, but I'm using some small jars. I'm going to give these as gifts, as a bigger than a trial size, but a small size for folks to try. When I get done with this one and it's steeped and I add the ingredients from the recipe, I'll get 2 to 3 small mason jars out of it, the ones that are about half the coffee cup size, those cute little ones. So I'll get 2 to 3 nice size sample jars out of this. This one I'm working on right now. That's what I wanted to show you. The directions in any recipe you're going to read will say finely, coarsely chopped. You can lay these out and chop them. Some folks go to all the bother of a blender or a food processor. That's just more stuff you have to clean. And if you have an off-grid homestead, or I don't know you're going to make this salve if you're in a survival situation, but you could steep it over an open flame. This is the whole part of the jewelweed plant is really thin enough, even the stems on the more mature ones, that you really don't even need a knife. I do the leaves and the shoots and the stems. The reason this one is a little bit difficult to pull apart, not on first try, is because it's a young one, so it's very juicy, making it more pliable. But I'm just tearing off pieces of the leaf. The size matters, as in most things. The smaller it is, the least amount of time it's going to take to fully steep. You could put a whole entire leaf in there if you want to. Some folks steep up to 24 hours. I wouldn't go any longer than that, but you could steep longer. Now I'm putting big pieces of stem in here, and that will extract the juice out of it. It's going to make a really nice base for this salve. You could also use this and steep it. Now I know the recipe for the apple cider vinegar for the infusion is a little bit similar with using the plantain, and the wound wash is similar still, and they're kind of interchangeable. You could take this and save it as a wound wash and strain out the natural plant matter and save it as a wound wash to use as a poultice. You wouldn't have to necessarily make this as a salve. You can make it multiple and use it several different ways. But when you get a big piece of stem like this, it is going to be nice and juicy. Will the stem completely steep? Not entirely. You're going to have a decent chunk of it left. You can peel it. You can pull it apart with your fingers, kind of like you would celery. My hands are so slick now from all this juice that a knife might not have been a bad idea. But I just want to show you how simple it is to take apart. And you will be extracting the juice out of the stem, even if it doesn't soak up every last bit of the stem, which is the goal, to get all the vital nutrient parts. But this one is lightly packed at halfway. So I'm going to put it in my cook pot, and I have 2 more to do. And then I will get those to steeping. And they'll steep on low heat for about 2 hours. And I can strain it. And I can go on to making the rest of the salve recipe. Hello again, folks. It is now time to stop steeping and take our jewelweed wound wash mixture out of the pot. I think I might actually need 2 oven mitts for this. Now I have my setup here, a bowl for my liquid to strain in, my strainer, which has fairly small holes, but I still think some of the steeped natural matter might get through, so I lined it with 2 coffee filters. Go ahead and get these oven mitts on. Take out one of my jars. I'm going to pour it right in. Let it all plop down there. Oh, of course it twisted in my hand. Okay, so I'm going to let it settle in there for a couple minutes. That's about the color it's going to be. You might need to shift your strainer around a little bit to get all the juice out. And all this natural matter that's left, I'm going to save in another bowl so I can use it as a natural green dye for some needle felting projects. See, it seeped right through the coffee filter, so it did its job. Go ahead and give this some shakes. I would just leave that in there because I'm going to be accumulating more. But here's my greenish brown finished seeped liquid. So I'm going to rinse out the mason jar. Whoa, the very hot mason jar. So I think I'm going to leave it be pouring cold water in it right now. We'll crack it. I have one little leaf stuck inside. You want to make sure you get your leaves out. You don't want any of the natural matter in there. It will cause molding. Scooch this back here a little bit. Going to go ahead and put my funnel on and pick up my bowl. This is going to be very hot, so watch your fingers. And pour my liquid in. There we go. So now I have it in the jar. And then I'm going to start mixing in all my other ingredients and put it back in the pot. This is just going to set aside for just a moment. I'm going to mix in my other ingredients and put it in the pot, liquefy them, and I will stir them in there together. Okay folks, it is time to finish up our salve here. I used a double boiler method as shown in the photos. Kind of a makeshift double boiler to melt my cocoa butter. I chose to use it over shea butter because I had plenty of cocoa butter left. And coconut oil. And my beeswax pastilles. The smaller your beeswax, the easier it is going to be able to get it melting without scorching. These are tinky tiny little morsels here. Much better than chopping off a big block and trying to shave and measure. So I'm going to turn off the stove. Beeswax does not melt till it hits 170 degrees, and even though I use pastilles, it still took a while to melt. So I need to let this cool for just a couple of minutes, not very long, 2-3 minutes max, and then I pour it into the mixture with the salve. After I do that, I'm going to add my half a teaspoon of vitamin E and any essential oils I choose to use. You can use up to 15 drops. You can use none. You can use all the same kind. You can use some combination. Usually I would use lavender, eucalyptus because they are so soothing for the skin. But this batch, because it's summer and I'm going to use this a lot to ward off bugs and to put on bug bites, I'm going to use some citronella oil. And neroli oil has a lot of healing properties. That will make the salve equally good for swelling, bruises, minor burns. And lemongrass for its disinfectant properties. And also bugs tend to hate that scent, so that's an added feature there. Okay, I don't want this to gel. As you see when I pour it in, it's still very liquidy. It's kind of like a milk-like consistency. So I'm going to pour it in here to the salve portion that we steeped with the jewelweed and the plantain and the carrier oil. I'll stir it all up really well. If you happen to notice you have any little tidbits of plant matter in there, now would be the time to get it out. And I wish the beeswax might have melted a smidge more. I see a couple little ghosts of some pastille shapes, but not many. So I'm going to go ahead and put in an amount of drops of my liking into the salve. And I may vary it depending on what it's going to be used for, who it's going to be given it to. And I'm going to use a lot on children, young children. 4 and younger, I probably won't put any essential oils in at all. It's so highly concentrating. There's quite a few essential oils that are wonderful but might not be good for young children or pregnant or nursing women. So that's something to keep in mind and label your salves accordingly. Especially, you never know if you're going to be the one around when it gets open and used. So I will put the canning lid. Oh, I forgot my vitamin E, which if you don't have vitamin E, it's not essential, but it does help soothe the skin more, especially for rashes or burns. You can either use vitamin E in a liquid form like this. You can get the little caplets you might already have in your medicine cabinet or first aid kit and just poke a hole in the end. And stir it up again and squeeze those in. You can also use aloe vera juice. They're not exactly interchangeable, but they both have soothing and antiseptic properties. So this will need to harden for a couple hours, just at room temperature. And it will gel and be a nice thick salve. That's why you definitely do not want to put it in a squirt bottle. This would be about 3 of the little mason jars that are more like this, more like a jelly container size, or one you'd see a little candle in. So it's quite a bit of salve, will go a long way. It's very concentrated. So it's all done, and all it needs to do is gel, and then you put the lid and ring on it. You can use it and have it keep for, I'm going to say confidently, at least 12 months, but could keep way longer than that, for years longer than that, if you made it properly, made sure there wasn't any green matter inside, stored it with a firm fitting lid in a cool, dark place. It could keep, 2 to 5 years or longer, but I would feel safe to say that as long as there's no mold on it or any signs of rust, that it should remain potent for 12 months.